Darren Pike said it loud, clear, and mean. Right in the middle of the glass conference room, with 12 clients sitting around that long polished table. You're nothing without this job, Sloan. Remember that. Heat climbed up my neck. My hands went still. The room went quiet, not the thinking kind. The watching kind. I kept my voice even. I disagree. Let me tell you who I am before I tell you what happened next. My name is Sloan Mercer. I'm 36 years old. For 6 years I had quietly built the most trusted client portfolio in that firm, not because anyone handed it to me, but because I showed up before anyone else arrived, stayed long after the last light went off, and learned every client's business like it was my own. I never chased credit. I never lobbied for titles. I believed, maybe foolishly, that good work would speak for itself. It didn't. Or rather, it spoke, but the wrong person took the microphone. Darren Pike had been my manager for 18 months. In that time he had touched nothing I built, understood nothing I managed, and claimed everything my work produced. And on this particular Tuesday morning, in front of 12 people whose trust one had spent years earning, he decided to remind the room who held the power. He was about to find out how badly he had miscalculated. Darren's eyes narrowed. He looked at people like they were small problems he hadn't solved yet. Junior staff, suppliers, anyone who didn't bow to him. Now it was aimed at me. Then Mara Webb, our lead client, slowly closed her laptop. One soft click. The sound carried. One by one, the others stopped typing. 12 people going silent, like falling dominoes. Darren's expression shifted. Not much. Just enough. Mara stood. We're done here. Chair scraped. The silence turned sharp. Darren let out a short, nervous laugh. Sit down. This is internal. Mara looked at me. Not at Darren. At me. Are you coming? My heart slammed. My job was finished either way. I stood up. The room tilted slightly. As I walked toward the door, Darren's voice cracked. You'll regret this. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Check your email, they're setting you up. I ducked into the stairwell and pressed my back against the cold concrete wall. My lungs were working like I had sprinted up 6 floors. I opened my email. It was already there. Subject line, HR meeting, performance and conduct review, S. Mercer. 3 hours from now. I scrolled down. Attachments. Screenshots of messages I had never written. A long thread with my name at the top, labeled client poaching. Words I would never use. A tone I didn't recognize. But my name was on every single one. My phone rang. Mara, they're lying about you, she said before I could speak. We all saw what happened in that room. Whatever they're saying, we saw the truth. Before I could answer, the stairwell door swung open. Darren stood there with both hands in his pockets, smiling with his whole face. The calm kind of smile that said he had already planned this moment. HR's waiting for you, superstar. He held up a printed page. A formal complaint with a client signature at the bottom. I looked at the signature. Something about it was off. The ink weight. The angle. It looked wrong in a way I couldn't immediately explain. Mara's voice came through my phone, low and steady. Don't sign anything. I can prove that signature is forged. The HR conference room was cold and white, with no windows and a long table that felt like a courtroom bench. Paula Sims from HR slid a thick folder across to me like she was handing down a verdict. She sat across from me with Darren on her right and a nervous company lawyer named Feld adjusting his glasses on her left. We're giving you the option to resign today, Paula said. If you do, we won't pursue legal action. She read out the accusations slowly. Misconduct. Insubordination. Deliberate interference with client relationships. I listened without speaking. I was looking at the screenshots they had printed out. The timestamps. The format was wrong. Our internal system used a different date format. These had been put together somewhere else. Darren leaned back in his chair. You always wanted to feel important. Congratulations. Now you are. I stood up. I'll need the original system logs. Not screenshots. The room shifted. Paula's mouth tightened. Feld stopped adjusting his glasses. The screenshots are sufficient, Paula said carefully. They aren't, I replied. Original logs or nothing. Paula looked at Darren. Something passed between them. We can bring IT in here, she said finally. Darren's smile returned, wide and confident. That confidence worried me more than anything else in the room. Luca arrived 20 minutes later with a laptop bag over one shoulder. He was the IT specialist I had gone to bat for 2 years ago when management wanted to cut his contract. He had kept his job because of me. He didn't meet my eyes when he walked in. He sat down, opened his laptop, and plugged a cable into the conference room port. HR asked him to pull up the message logs and confirm the evidence on file. Luca's hands moved across the keyboard. They were shaking slightly. I could see it from across the table. Darren leaned in close to him. Confirm it and we end this today. I shifted in my seat so I could catch the reflection of Luca's screen in the glass panel behind him. He wasn't pulling up logs. He was opening a folder that was already prepared and waiting on a shared drive. Then Luca stood to pass me a pen. As he placed it in my hand, he whispered so only I could hear. Don't use your company laptop. They mirrored it. Everything on it goes straight to them. I closed my fingers around the pen and said nothing. My personal phone lit up on the table. Mara had sent a file. A short video clip from the client meeting. I kept my face neutral while I looked at what Mara had sent. It was a recording from the client side of the conference room. One of them had been recording on a personal device propped against a water bottle. The angle caught Darren perfectly. First, him saying, "We'll make an example out of you." Then the full moment where he told me I was nothing. Then the 12 clients rising, one by one. The footage was clear. The audio was clean. I wanted to forward it immediately. Every part of me wanted to send it right that second. But I stopped myself. If I sent anything from my phone on this network, they would see it. Luca had warned me. I needed to be careful. Instead, I looked up at Paula and asked, calmly and politely, for a copy of all recorded meeting footage from that morning, citing company policy that gave employees access to records involving their own conduct reviews. Paula stiffened. We don't have recordings from that meeting. I kept my face very still. But I had walked past that conference room every single day for 4 years. I knew exactly where the ceiling camera was mounted. And I had watched that small red light go dark just after we left. I walked past the conference room on my way to collect my things from my desk. The camera on the ceiling was dark now, the red light completely gone. Someone had switched it off after the fact. I kept walking. The receptionist on the 4th floor, a quiet woman named B who had worked there longer than anyone, slipped me a small sticky note as I passed her station without slowing down. It read, "Server room." 7:15 p.m. that evening, Mara sent a message. The 12 clients had paused all active work orders with the firm. No new work. No responses to account managers. Total silence. She said Darren was panicking in his office with the door shut. Then an email came in from Gavin Holt, one of the 12. He wrote that Darren had called him directly. Offered a discount package on his account if Gavin agreed to stay and, separately, if Gavin would tell HR that I had misled the clients during our working relationship. I read the email twice. Then I replied to Gavin with one line. Forward me anything else he sends you. Gavin's response came back in less than 2 minutes. Already did. It's worse than you think. Gavin had forwarded Darren's full email thread. I read through it slowly, sitting in my car in the building's parking structure where nobody could see my screen. What Darren had written to Gavin and 2 other clients was not just an offer. It was a bribe. Specific cash rebates, off the books, tied to client loyalty agreements that bypassed the company's standard billing process entirely. Illegal in any contract I had ever reviewed. And then came the separate request. A written statement claiming I had misled clients about service capabilities. Darren had even drafted the language for Gavin to use. I took screenshots and saved the files in 3 separate places. My personal phone. A cloud account Darren had no connection to. And an encrypted note I emailed to myself from a private address. Then my banking app sent an alert. My paycheck had been reversed. Not delayed. Reversed. As if it had never been sent. I sat in the dark of that parking structure and understood exactly what Darren was doing. He wasn't just trying to fire me. He was trying to drain my options until I had nothing left to fight with. No income. No platform. No way to hold on. Then my phone rang. It was Luca. They're wiping the server logs tonight. I met Luca behind the building at 7:15, in the narrow service alley between the loading dock and the fire exit. He looked pale under the yellow security lights. He kept glancing toward the road. They're using me as the fall guy, he said. If this blows up, I'm the one holding the bag. I touched the system. I was in that room. He rubbed the back of his neck. I have access to one backup before they wipe it tonight. One pull. That's it. He said I could choose the meeting footage or the complete message logs. Not both. The backup window was small. I thought about the footage. It was powerful. It showed Darren's words, the clients walking out, the whole chain of events. But I already had Mara's clip. I already had something close to that. I told him to pull the footage. Luca flinched. He actually flinched, like I had said the wrong answer out loud. The logs are worse, he said quietly. Much worse. The footage shows what he said. The logs show what he did. I paused. Then pull the logs. He nodded, reaching for his access card. Then he stopped and looked back at me. There's still one problem. The logs are behind admin access. Do you know anyone who still has it? I thought for exactly 4 seconds. Then I called Nadia. Nadia had been our compliance lead for 3 years before Darren had her removed. He had called her difficult in every meeting and slowly dismantled her authority until she had no choice but to leave. She had gone quietly. Too quietly, some of us thought at the time. She answered on the second ring. I wondered when he'd do this to you, she said. No surprise in her voice. Just the flat certainty of someone who had seen it coming from miles away. She agreed to help. But she had one condition. She wanted me to let her expose something beyond my case. Something larger that she had been watching build since before she left the company. I agreed without hesitating. 20 minutes later, she sent me a document from her own records. She had titled it, How to Legally Destroy a Liar. It was a detailed checklist, ordered by urgency, grounded in employment law and internal policy. Each step was numbered. Each step had a note about what it protected and what it proved. I read through it in my car, parked 2 streets away from the building. The first item made me go very still. It said, find the client list manipulation. Nadia walked me through it on a video call that night, her screen shared across my laptop. She pulled up a set of internal records she had kept copies of before leaving, records that compliance leads were permitted to retain. She had never had a reason to use them. Until now. The client list manipulation was not subtle once you saw it. Darren had been reassigning client accounts on paper. Moving names from one portfolio to another in the system. On the surface it looked like normal account management. Underneath, it was a way to inflate his own client retention numbers and claim performance bonuses he had not actually earned. The 12 clients who walked out that morning with me had been listed under my work for years. Real relationships I had built through long hours and careful attention. But in the system, Darren had quietly moved them under his name, months at a time, whenever bonus periods were approaching. My work. His credit. His pay. Nadia let that sit for a moment. Then she said, the bonuses he claimed on those reassigned accounts go back 18 months. If we prove the reassignment was deliberate fraud, every payout becomes clawbackable. She paused. And once HR sees what they've been protecting, they won't have a choice. They'll flip. Nadia coached me through the call for 40 minutes before I made it. She told me exactly how to sound. Tired. Worn down. A little lost. She said people like Darren feel most comfortable talking when they think they've already won. I called Darren just after 9 that evening and told him I wanted to find a way through this. That I was exhausted, that maybe there was room to talk things over and sort it out quietly. He believed it immediately. I could hear him relax over the phone. His voice shifted into that smooth, careless tone he used when he felt in control. You should have stayed small, he said. That's all you had to do. Those clients were never yours. I built those relationships long before you started handling them. He had just admitted to the reassignment. On a recorded call. In a state where single-party consent made the recording completely legal. Nadia had confirmed that before I dialed. I kept my voice steady and let him keep talking. He laughed. HR's not on your side, by the way. Don't waste your time going back to them. He paused, then said a name. The HR director's name. Paula Sims. I've had an arrangement with her for a long time, he said. She answers to me. Nadia pulled Paula Sims's employment file that same night. It took her an hour and 2 calls to former colleagues who still had system access they were not supposed to have. What she found was buried inside a document labeled as a standard retention agreement. Most of it looked routine, but there was one clause that was not routine at all. Paula's compensation included variable payouts tied directly to client retention figures across the accounts Darren managed. Which meant every time Darren kept a client, Paula earned more money. And every time a client left, she lost it. They were financially linked. Paula's income depended on Darren's numbers. Darren's numbers depended on the accounts he had been quietly reassigning from my portfolio to his. My termination had been designed to keep those numbers clean. Nadia sat back from her screen. She didn't just allow what happened to you. She had a financial reason to make sure it worked. I was still processing that when a calendar invite hit my inbox. Sent from HR at 11:48 p.m. Termination finalization meeting. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. They weren't waiting any longer. Then Mara sent a short message. We're meeting tonight. All 12 of us. Bring whatever proof you have. You need to see this in person. The restaurant had a private back room with a round table and no windows. All 12 clients were already seated when I arrived. The energy was not sad. It was focused. Mara spoke first. We didn't leave because of you. We left because of what that room showed us about the people running your firm. We've been watching this pattern for months. The disrespect. The arrogance. Clients treated like line items. One by one, the others added to it. Stories I hadn't heard. Calls ignored. Promises that evaporated. The sense that the firm saw clients as numbers and nothing more. Then Mara leaned forward. We didn't come tonight just to compare notes. We came because we want to offer you something. She paused. Around the table, faces were steady and serious. Start your own firm, set it up right. We will follow you there. All 12 of us. My mouth went dry. It was the most terrifying and most incredible thing anyone had ever offered me. Then Gavin spoke from across the table, his voice careful and quiet. But you need to know something first. If you move on this, they will sue you into the ground. Unless you walk out of here with real leverage. I read my employment contract 3 times that night at my kitchen table. The non-compete was 4 pages of tight language covering every scenario. Geographic restrictions. Client restrictions. Industry restrictions. A 2-year window. The kind of clause that buries a person in legal fees before any case is heard. I sent it to Nadia at midnight. She called me back in 20 minutes. They copied this from a template, she said. I could hear the cold satisfaction in her voice. I recognize it. It's been circulating in HR circles for years. The problem with using templates is that you have to file updates when your internal policies change. This firm didn't. She explained it carefully. The policy underpinning the non-compete had been updated twice in the past year without the corresponding contract filings being submitted to the relevant state registry. That single administrative failure created a legal gap wide enough to walk through. But Nadia had found something even more significant on her second read. They didn't just miss the filing, she said. They missed it across every role in your category. This doesn't just free you. If we time this right and bring it to the right people, it voids the non-compete clause for every senior consultant in the firm. Not just you, she said. All of them. I arrived at 8:58 a.m. and sat down before anyone else came in. The room filled slowly. Paula. Feld the lawyer. Two other HR staff I didn't recognize. Darren walked in last, looked at me, and said Sloan like it was already past tense. He sat directly across with the ease of a man who believed the outcome was decided. Paula slid a separation agreement across the table. Thick, sealed with a binder clip. An NDA ran across pages 4 through 9. I didn't open it. Instead, I looked at Paula and asked one question. Is this meeting being recorded? She said no. I reached into my bag and placed my personal phone on the table, screen up, recording already running. Good, I said. Because I need you all to hear something. I played the call with Darren. His voice came through clearly. The admission about the client reassignments. The comment about HR Paula's name, spoken by Darren himself, tied to a long-standing arrangement. The room went completely still. Paula's face had gone the color of old paper. Feld stopped writing. The two unnamed HR staff exchanged a look that said neither of them had known what they were walking into. Darren straightened slowly in his chair. Then he smiled. You think that matters? He said. Legal already filed first. The papers arrived before noon. A courier delivered them to the building lobby while I was still upstairs gathering my belongings from my desk. Injunction. Client interference. Misappropriation of trade secrets. Darren had moved fast, faster than I had expected given that he had spent the morning watching his admission play out in a conference room. I called Mara from the lobby. She had already received a similar letter at her office. Cease and desist. A warning about tortious interference with contractual relationships. The language was designed to frighten. But then one of the 12 clients, a careful and methodical man named Roy, called Mara while she was still on the line with me. Roy said he had a story to tell. He said Darren had tried the exact same set of moves before. Not recently. About 14 months ago, when another senior person had raised concerns about how accounts were being handled. That person had not fought back. They had accepted a quiet settlement, signed documents that buried the whole situation, and disappeared from the industry. Roy said he had witnessed some of it firsthand. I asked if he knew the name of the person who had been pushed out. He said yes. Her name is Elena Voss. She used to be a partner here. Nadia found Elena Voss in less than an hour. She was no longer in the industry. She had moved away and was running a small bookkeeping business. Her professional profiles had been stripped bare. No former employer. No affiliations. The kind of digital silence people create when they want to disappear. But Nadia had kept records of a case filing from 14 months ago. The case had been settled before it reached any public docket. The settlement documents were sealed. But the case title was visible in the registry. Voss v. the firm. The case had been filed under a category that included fraud, portfolio misrepresentation, and unlawful termination. Every element matched what had happened to me. The client reassignments, the manufactured misconduct. The pressure to sign and disappear quietly. Darren had done this before. The firm had paid to keep it quiet. Paula had almost certainly been involved. This was not a bad manager having a bad moment. This was a system that had been running for over a year, protected by people whose pay was tied to making it work. We now had a pattern. That changed everything. Then Luca texted from an unknown number. They're deleting the backup right now. Tell me which file. I have 60 seconds. I typed the answer before I even finished thinking it through. The client reassignment audit trail. The system logs. A minute passed. Then 2. Then 5. My phone sat silent in my hand and I stared at it without breathing properly. Then Luca called from a number I didn't recognize. I got it, he said, voice low and unsteady. I pulled it clean. But I can't go home. There's a car outside my building that wasn't there this morning. They're watching. I told him to go to Nadia. I gave him her address. She had expected something like this and had already said she could provide a safe place for people who helped us. He hung up quickly. 40 minutes later, Nadia called me. Luca made it, she said. And I've looked at what he pulled. She went quiet for a moment. It's complete. Every reassignment. Dates, account numbers, approval codes. 18 months of it, all in sequence. Then her voice dropped. There's something else. Darren didn't sign off on some of these himself. There's a second approval signature running through the logs for the larger accounts. She said the name. Frank Obi. The chief operating officer. We don't fight Darren, she said. We take the whole company. Nadia and I spent 2 full days building the board packet. We worked at her dining room table with everything spread out in order. The recorded call. The bribe emails from Gavin. The audit trail log showing Darren and Frank Obi's approval codes through 18 months of falsified records. The forged misconduct report metadata. The Elena Voss case title. A timeline showing the full pattern. Nadia formatted it into a single clean file with page numbers, a full index, and a plain language cover memo. We did not send it to HR. We did not send it to legal. We sent it directly to Conrad Walsh, the chair of the board, using a verified address Nadia had kept from her time in compliance. We sent it at exactly 9:17 a.m. on a Thursday morning. By 11:40 a.m., a reply came back from a board assistant. Package received. Do not contact anyone internally until further notice. Do not go into the office. Do not respond to any company communications. That evening, Darren posted something on his professional profile. Sad to share that a team member was let go this week following a conduct review. Wishing them well. He didn't use my name. Not yet. By the next morning, someone had fed the story to an industry blog. No name. But specific enough that anyone in our field would know exactly who. A consultant who had destabilized client relationships and been let go for conduct issues. My phone filled with messages within hours. Some were from colleagues asking careful questions. A few from people I barely knew who had already picked a side. Then Mara published something of her own. She posted a short, clear statement on her firm's official page. 12 clients had ended their relationship with the company following leadership conduct they had witnessed directly. She named no individuals. She described what she and the others had seen in the room that morning, the public humiliation, the dismissal of a woman they had worked closely with for years. She said they stood by her fully. Within 4 hours, her post had been shared across the industry. The comments were running strongly in my favor. People who had worked with me. Former colleagues. Other clients who had heard similar stories about the firm's internal culture. The public story had flipped. That night, at 11:52 p.m., my phone rang. It was Darren. Name your price to shut up, he said. I let a moment of silence sit between us before I spoke. I'm not interested in money, I said. He laughed. Not the confident kind. The kind with a hollow center. Everyone is interested in money, he said. Name a number. This can end tonight and nobody has to read about it anywhere. I want one thing, I said. Your resignation. In writing. Submitted to the board by end of business tomorrow. The line went very quiet. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Something had come off it, the polished layer he always wore. If I go down, he said slowly, I take you with me. I've been careful. I have something on you that changes everything. My stomach dropped. I kept my voice level. What are you talking about? He didn't answer directly. He said goodnight and hung up. 30 seconds later, a screenshot arrived by text. My employee file. But with a document inside it I had never seen in my life. The heading read, Internal Misconduct Report. It listed a date from 2 years ago. It described a series of alleged actions attributed to me with full detail, signed with my manager's name from that period. I had never been told about it. Because it had never existed. I forwarded the screenshot to Nadia at midnight. She called me back in just under an hour. It's a fake, she said. Her voice was flat with certainty. I ran the metadata. That document was created yesterday evening at 7:43 p.m. The file properties show the creation date clearly. Someone went in and typed a false date into the document body, but the system timestamp doesn't lie. She said we had to add it to the board packet immediately. Not as a problem. As evidence. A misconduct report backdated and filed without my knowledge was not just dishonest. It was retaliation evidence. It showed a pattern of document fabrication that strengthened every other claim we had made. Nadia updated the packet and sent the revised version to Conrad Walsh's assistant with a cover note flagging the new edition. The board assistant replied 40 minutes later. It was past 1 in the morning. The message was short. Board meeting rescheduled to tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. You are requested to attend in person. Come alone. I set 3 alarms. Then Luca sent a message from the number I now had saved. Something is happening tonight. HR director is shredding documents. Physical ones. Filing cabinets. I can see it from the floor below through the glass. I called Nadia immediately. She arrived at the building before I did. We stood outside in the dark, looking up at the lit windows on the 6th floor. Through the glass we could see movement. A trolley. Papers going into the shredding unit in steady handfuls. Nadia made one phone call. She spoke quietly for less than 2 minutes and then put her phone away. Building security has a protocol for after-hours document destruction, she said. Especially when it may be connected to an active legal matter. 8 minutes later, 2 security officers arrived. They went upstairs. We waited. The lights on the 6th floor stayed on. More movement through the glass. Then nothing for a long stretch. Then Darren walked out of the lobby below. He stopped when he saw me on the footpath. For a moment neither of us spoke. You're trespassing, he said. I'm standing on a public footpath, I said. And my phone has been recording since we arrived. A security officer stepped out behind him. Darren turned and walked back inside. I stayed where I was, phone in hand. Everything recorded. Everything timestamped. In 8 hours, it would all be in front of the board. The 14th floor boardroom was quieter and more serious than the conference room where this had all started. Conrad Walsh sat at the head of the table, 2 board members beside him. A legal team I didn't recognize lined the far wall. Darren arrived at 7:28 a.m., suit changed, chin up. He gave me the wide settled look he used when he believed a room already belonged to him. Conrad Walsh did not greet anyone. He opened a laptop and pressed play. The first clip, Darren's voice from the recorded call. The client reassignments. His own words. The second, the bribe email to Gavin, in full. The third, the audit trail logs showing 18 months of falsified reassignments, with Darren's and Frank Obi's approval codes running side by side. The fourth, the footage from outside the building the night before, Security officers called in while documents were being destroyed in Paula Sims's office. The fifth, the forged misconduct report metadata, showing the creation date. Darren's expression changed slowly. Layer by layer. Like paint coming off a wall in the rain. Frank Obi tried to interrupt. One of the board members raised a hand. Obi sat back. Conrad Walsh turned to me. What do you want from this? I had thought about my answer carefully. I want my name cleared, I said. In writing, sent to every client, every contact, anyone who received communications suggesting I acted with misconduct. Conrad Walsh nodded. And I want the non-compete voided. Not just for me. For every senior consultant in my role category. The filing was missed. Fix it properly. The board offered a financial settlement on top. I said I didn't need it. I needed the record clean and a public acknowledgement of what happened in that conference room. They agreed. Darren was terminated for cause before the meeting ended. Frank Obi resigned within the hour. Paula Sims submitted her resignation that afternoon. A formal letter went to all 12 clients acknowledging the misconduct. That afternoon, Mara and the other 11 signed agreements with my new consultancy. All 12 of them. Darren found me in the hallway. His voice was thin. Hollow. You'll collapse without our platform, he said. I looked at him once. I was your platform, I said. Then I walked out. And 12 people walked out with me again. But this time it wasn't shock. It was a choice, made clearly, by people who knew exactly what they were choosing. He said I'd be nothing without the job. Then he watched the job become nothing without me. If you're reading this and you recognize something in Sloane's story, if you've been talked over, written out, or made to feel like you only exist inside someone else's permission, I want you to hear this clearly: the quiet ones keep receipts. The steady ones outlast the loud ones. And the platform they told you that you couldn't survive without? You were the platform all along. You don't need their stage. You need your evidence, your patience, and one person in your corner who remembers the truth. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that today. It might be the reminder that changes everything for them, just like walking out of that room changed everything for me.